Death be not proud.
Well, all right, you ignorant pigs, put down your crack pipes in the beer bongs. It's time for the Angry Tabletop Nerd Show. On today's show, we have Age of Sigmar getting the end times treatment, Woke GW lying about the existence of Custodes, dudes, they've always been around, read between the lines, towing the progressive social commie douchebag line. All right, as usual, I am late to the party on the issue of certain armies getting nixed in the game of Age of Sigmar. Looks like Beastmen and Bonespitters are definitely getting the axe, not to mention many of the Sigmar Marines are getting the axe, and some Skaven are also getting the axe. So I was there in 2015 when the courage of gamers failed, and they said we need to make the game more accessible to new people, to quote bring new fans who will become the wave of the future. Being told I was too much of an old boomer gamer at 30 something else. So I and many other fans were cast aside for Zoomer cocksuckers who were the wave of the future. And now it looks like you sanctimonious hipster bags of douche are now being cast aside for Generation Alpha. As a matter of fact, the target audience is much younger than you. You guys aren't even into your early 30s yet, and you're being cast aside for teenagers. How does it feel? I just want to know real quick. You can say that in the comments. How does it feel to be cast aside the same way all us old sweat gamers were back in 2015 when they decided to end times fantasy? And nowadays, fantasy is back and it's going gangbusters. I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same. Much of the chagrin of the naysayers out there. Most of everything that has come out for Old World is sold out. I've even had this stuff sell out around me on live stream, and I couldn't get stuff for my orcs when it just came out at launch. So let's start with the Beastmen. Beastmen are a range that are they're decades old. They were around 20 years ago, coming into their own as an army for 6th edition. They got a 7th edition codex, and then they got some new models with that. And some of the new models were translated over to Age of Sigmar, But Beastmen they're also one of the armies that are highlighted in Warhammer Fantasy the Old World. Now, granted, I would totally trade Beastmen for Skaven, but it's just not there on the timeline. AOS has always struggled to find its footing as its own unique game with its own unique model range. It has always lived in the shadow of Warhammer the Old World. Like it or not, everything that was in the first battle tomes was from Warhammer the Old World. All right. 40K and now AOS 4th edition are basically going to be the same game with different names for different things. They're bringing lethal hits and sustained hits into AOS, and it's going to be more of the same dumbed down that 40K 10th edition got. So when I said initially AOS was a stupefied version back in 2016, I was right, but I was ridiculed for it. Egregiously ratioed, totally misunderstood, but I was right nonetheless. Does this deserve a fuck you, I was right, fuck you, I was right? No, not really. People weren't ready to accept it back then, I mean, we're getting rid of movement trays because people can't understand the nuances of the movement phase, So I went, played Kings of War for a few decades. I guess for almost a decade, maybe 5 years. I played other games while I waited for Fantasy to come back into its own. And I said, don't stop playing Warhammer 8th Edition. Nothing will happen to the game unless you stop playing it. And what's the first thing people did? They cast it aside just like Woody when they got the Buzz Lightyear axe. So Savage Orcs were a range of plastic kits, not to mention many orc kits, and the Ragnarok were brought into existence around 2011. And then you had all the other armies that had miscellaneous items. The Dark Elves had some new models. Everybody had some new models. They all went into Cities of Sigmar. So until very recently, I don't think that they had the model range for Sigmar really flushed out. They had to reinvent the orcs. They had to reinvent humans in the game into the free guild with their iron weld great cannons and everything. They had to reinvent chaos, basically. They also have to reinvent the Skaven so that this brand of this one game can stand on its own with its own models away from the old world. All right, and I'm surprised that Gloomspite Gits aren't getting the same treatment as well, because everything that they have is still highly backwards compatible with old world in and of itself. You know, so it should be technically 3 factions, not 4. Like it or not, my group went into AOS recently, dropped out of 10th edition. My group also has no interest in AOS because of the incoming initial dumbdown that 4th edition represents. So let's talk about all of this from a business perspective. How do you make an expensive game like Warhammer anything accessible to poor people? And I've said it time and time before. This game has never and will never be for poor people. You know, they've been trying to make this game like Magic the Gathering for decades now. Since I want to say since early 2015, for a decade almost, they've been trying to make this game like Magic the Gathering, like something like everybody's going to meet in the card store and play Games Workshop games, and it's just not possible. One, most people are pathetic, lazy bags of douche who couldn't even build a model, much less paint one. And two, most people don't even have the money, especially the target audience. The coveted 17 to 24-year-old age range does not have the money to play this game. So they set out on a quest after, I want to say, mid-2016 to make all kinds of games for all types of income levels so that the welfare dependents could participate. So you get games like Warcry, Shadespire, Warhammer Quest, not to mention Kill Team, Silver Tower, Curse City, Blackstone Fortress, a lot of stand-on-your-own games. They bring back Blood Bowl, but Blood Bowl that's a classic that's kind of always been there. They bring Necromunda back into this. They dig into specialist games, and they start just creating all kinds of games to broaden the horizons of what you can buy, so that you, at some point, you know, GW is happy to take your $60 to $200, and on top of all that, they've been releasing a new version of 40K every single 3 years. I think from 2017 all the way up to now, we saw 8, 9, and 10. 9 kind of being a masterpiece, but being at the height of its. You're either going to be competitive, and we have to have a soft you're either going to be competitive right out the door, or pending a soft reboot of the game, and that's kind of why they ended 9th. And then you had the disaster that was 10th, where the outgoing team didn't even talk to the incoming team about the game. They just sort of remade it, and now it's kind of like a wonky, almost card game kind of feel to it. There's nothing really to brag home about it. I really think that if you want to play the truest version of the game, just play Heresy. Just play Heresy. Because, I don't know what 11th edition is going to look like, because, every time they've released a codex, even with Orcs now, Orcs just came out, they've had to release an FAQ on the points. Tyranids got this, Necrons got this, Marines got this. They've had to FAQ things every time they've released a book almost. So, I think we're still looking at another half edition, or they're just going to go right to 11th edition in 2 years' time, because I think the game is almost a year old, maybe a year old now. Enter the commie coof, and the lockdowns combined with stimulus checks, and people were just staying at home, buying hobby supplies and watching Tiger King, not really doing anything with those hobby supplies. People bought tons of products, added to their piles of shame, and then called themselves hobbyists. GW had a giant boom in sales, and so many releases you can't even write the rules or produce product fast enough to keep up with the games that are on the website. All the stuff over the last 3 years is all good, but who cares? If you can't support Legionis Imperialis, I mean, what's going to happen to that community? There's a huge community of Legionis Imperialis players who just don't have any support from GW, so the game is dead on arrival. You've seen it time and time again with dumbass influencers talking about, what about the community of the Warcry gamer, the community of the Kill Team gamer? All these communities, I think, are actually bad. There isn't just one community anymore. Oh, well, I only play Kill Team, and I'm a member of the Kill Team community. I'm not a member of the Wargaming community because you never were. You're what we call a looksy-loo or something like that. You're just a passerby, you know. You were never going to paint an army. You could barely paint paint and build the 10 models that came in your Kill Team box. So P is for pirate, and you'll consume whatever. GW is now a victim of their own success. They are unable to keep up with any of their games. And, you know, that's not, and that's a problem. They've made so many games, so many different products, so fast that they can't keep up with everything. They can't even keep up with 40K anymore. They can barely get the game right. You should not be spending $60 on a codex to get an FAQ the next day because, well, we made some things too good and now we think they need to be more expensive because we're not play testing them. We're not having statisticians in the room having that conversation on probability and things like that, you know. So that's become a huge problem from my standpoint, and this is kind of why we shelved our army. You know, so I want to talk about the Stormcast Eternals. You know, case in point, this product has basically matured. They've released so many Stormcast Eternal guys that they've really matured ahead of their potential lifespan. Apple phones are what's known as a mature product. Everybody has an Apple phone except for the people like me who are going to use Android. I would never ever buy Apple stock because Apple stock doesn't produce anything. It doesn't give you a dividend, and you're just told to buy it because it's valuable when it's really not that valuable. There's really no one out there to sell iPhones to. You know, if I look at my sister's family, every single kid has 3 kids. Or I can extend this to my other sister's family. All the kids have iPads. All of the adults, my sister, and my brother-in-laws, they have Apple laptops. They all have Apple phones. It is a mature product. I wouldn't buy an Apple computer. And, you know, so it's like if 80% of the cell phone usage out there is Apple, and there are even women who are willing to not date you because you're not using an Apple, because it's the Louis Vuitton of phones, you know, the product has definitely matured, and I would never buy stock in that company unless the year was 2007. And I wish I did have that kind of money to buy stock in the company because I'd be a millionaire right now if I just put 20,000 in and sold at 2018. So they have to gut the entirety of the Stormcast Eternal line because the product has matured. So let's get over to this from an independent retailer perspective, which I don't think anybody has done. You know, and store owner Dickhead says, I don't have magical shelving. Every week I get a new release and my shelves stay the same size. Barring this guy has never done anything to increase his market share. All right, he hasn't lifted a finger. It's the same douchebag painting the same miniatures 20 years later. All right, at some point, stuff needs to go away. Let's replace the old stuff with new stuff. I mean, he is like the antithesis of dumbass normie. Let's replace the old stuff with new stuff. Yay! That I have no room for because my store, it has a hideous, terrible layout. He's got a command center in the middle of the store, and it's just like the most off-putting thing. It's like on a pedestal. He like puts, this guy's so sanctimonious. He puts himself up on a pedestal, so he's like a foot and a half taller than everybody. I mean, the best way to describe Storm or Dickhead is he's a guy. He's a 3-chin butterball with 2 sets of tits and 3 chins and gray skin, and it looks like there's no nutrition left on top of his head, and that's why his hair fell out. All right. And now another army getting the axe is also the Skaven. And my friend said, what is Skaven without clan rats? They're getting rid of clan rats entirely. And I think my friend makes a good point. Even though the clan rats are entirely dated, it's just supposed to be like a small nuisance goblinoid creature. I mean, clan rats are supposed to be small. All right, they're supposed to be insignificant. They're, you give them a wooden shield and a rusty old sword, and hey, you got hundreds and hundreds of clan rats, and you're never going to kill enough of them to win the battle. And so you can't have Skaven without clan rats, and that was the point of contention between my friend and store owner Dickhead. All right, well, they just weren't selling like they should, so let's replace it with new stuff, so that I can keep selling more than I ever sold. And again, this guy. I've watched other stores grow in business so much to the point that they have to rent out the store next to them. There are 2 stores that I've seen, in my state at least, that have done that. They have 2 spaces that they've rented into because their business has grown so much. This guy hasn't done one thing, not even one pen stroke to expand his business, all right? But, I think what you're going to have to do is maybe just pick one GW game from here on out to kind of end this vicious cycle. Stop buying the new release, all right? And now you have to enter in the investors, BlackRock and Vanguard, who now own 9% of GW. And that money train can't stop. You have to keep coming out with a release, sniff in those products, come out with another release, get yourself another line of K, and go and lather, rinse, repeat. The money train can't stop because you sold some of your business to a company that has $7 trillion of U.S. taxpayer money. And I don't think anybody's hinted on this yet, of U.S. taxpayer money to basically buy influence into any company they want. So let's shift gears and talk about female Custodes. It's no secret that GW has been woke as fuck since 2016. I made a lot of videos long since deleted on the subject, not to mention, well received for the most part in their day, but the reason why the videos are no longer there is because they didn't really age well with time. The stuff that I was kind of ahead of the bell curve with, and I wish I had released it in a different capacity rather than now, So, let's talk about the company that never produced a single attractive female model. Notice how I got the lovely Aka Atsuka next to me here on the screen. They have never produced a giant tittied elf princess ever in their life. It's like they are the kings of uglified women over there at GW. I think it's all those British women that they bow down to and worship. I mean, British women literally look like the troll hag. They all got a set of National Geographic titties, and they're not like the cute little numbers they got over in Japan. Let's just face it, Japanese women are better than British women. They're probably nicer too. All right. That aside, all female models should look like the fat chick on the Ironweld Great Cannon. The Dark Eldar chicks are all ugly for the most part, not to mention the Dark Elf chicks are kind of ugly. So is it any surprise that GW would sell 9% of their stock to BlackRock and Vanguard for some ESG money? Now enter the first contradiction to the lore as we know it. There have always been female Custodes, guys. You just didn't read the lore properly. You didn't read between the lines the last 30 years, you guys. They've always existed, So now Warhammer is at the precipice of becoming a mainstream product, kind of like Star Wars. Star Wars, Magic the Gathering, it's at the precipice of becoming mainstream, and it's attracted the gaze of a lot of political activists who would accuse the game of being racist and sexist. But wait, you say, how can that be? Sisters of Battle have been around for 20 years. Same with chicks in the Dark Elf army and in the Eldar army. You know, the men and the women in the Dark Elf army and the Dark Eldar army, they fight together as one, you know. There's also girls in the ranks of the Imperial Guard, not to mention the Bretonnian damsels. All right? Not to mention the superfluous black guy on the Ironweld Great Cannon who's also holding a bottle of malt liquor. I mean, it's the best racial stereotype ever. You got a black dude, bottle of malt liquor. And then you got my man, Vulcan Astant. He's like the blackest brother in the universe. Vulcan is so black, when he get out the Land Raider, the oil light pop on. Vulcan is so black, he's one step away from chucking a spear. Oh wait, they armed the blackest space marine ever with the spear last time I checked. Vulcan is so black he looked like Congo in the bush. Vulcan is so black, if he stood next to a building, he'd be an alley. Vulcan is so black, he don't even cast a shadow. Vulcan is so black, he looked like he under the bed. Vulcan is so black, I guarantee he never had any bright ideas. Vulcan is so black, if he wear a wife beater, he look like a skunk. Need I go on? I mean, there's plenty of diversity to go around, you know? Plenty of diversity. In 40K, not to mention and fantasy too. You got the black guy on the Ironweld Great Cannon. They deliberately made him that way, and they molded him up with the bottle of malt liquor there. You know, so you know don't blame me. Blame the racist designers. You know, I'm just the messenger, the vehicle with which this message gets delivered, okay? So plenty of diversity, but it's not good enough. They want to see female Space Marines throwing away 35 years of well-written lore for basically the sale of their souls and some ESG money, you know? And as you all full and well know, ESG demands everything must be gay. Luke Skywalker is now gay. Not to mention the sun shines out of the ass of a big, ugly black woman, and don't you dare question it. This brings us to our last topic, towing the progressive social commie douchebag line. Everything inside any niche hobby must now be political. Number one, above all, women can never be attractive. They all have to look ugly like the woman on the Ironweld Great Canyon, you know. Hence, a good example of this is the differences between 1995 Rogue and X-Men 97 Rogue, or, you know, Jubilee 1995 and now 97 Jubilee. 97 Jubilee kind of looks like Jackie Chan. She literally looks like Jackie Chan from Jackie Chan Adventures. They deliberately did something to her nose so that she would be less cute. Jubilee was supposed to be the cute one that was uplifting, you know. Number two, black, gay, lesbian, migrant, and trans crap has to be at the forefront. And, you know, it's the light source from which the sun shines. And from where does the sun shine, everybody? There's only one answer. The sun must shine out of the crack of a big, fat, ugly black lady's ass, because that is what we are telling you it does. You know, it's never been any different. It's always been this way. Don't question it. Because we all have to be homogenized into the realm of inclusion, basically. So if you say the emperor has no clothes, there's something wrong with you. Games Workshop even said since the Custodes, the first 10,000 Custodes were created, there have always been female custodians amongst their ranks, and they said that on X or Twitter. The Emperor has no clothes. The sky is really green. Oz is really over the rainbow, and Midian is where the monsters live. This is what happens when you take ESG money. Everything must be woke. We are looking at the end of any and all escapism. All right? This goes into any kind of escape that you might have. This could be 80s action movies, 80s horror movies, mid-90s comic books, video games, card games, and now 40K and the Warhammer universe. It all has to be political. Anything that would be used to escape the realm of politics now but must be highlighted now must be used to highlight woke political talking points. For example, Sisters of Battle. I know that's good, but what about female Marines? Poof, there you go. You got to have female Marines now. What about Marneus Calgar and his sexuality, his sexual orientation? Okay, we'll make Marneus Calgar gay, just like we made Luke Skywalker gay. Look at the poorly written female character of Yvraine. Notice how she's like the one chick in the ugly model, by the way. She's like the one chick who is the biggest Mary Sue on the face of the planet. To name a couple of things that she became great at. She was a great gladiator, great psyker, great pirate. She did everything with ease and has been completely perfect her whole life. She is the definition of Mary Sue, and now she's allegedly dating Rabute Gilliman. Not to mention that, again, another ugly chick, unless you look at the fan art, because Games Workshop has an affinity for ugly girls for some reason. They always have, they always will. If you want decent female models, go to Reaper. At least you can get one with a slender waist and some tits. I don't know what Games Workshop has against tits. So if you call the green, so let's go to the greenskins. We can make greenskins political. Oh, orcs aren't black people. Okay, they're black people. You just won't admit they're black people, you racist. That whole thing. At least that died. At least that died and isn't going to be brought back up again because it was the dumbest thing anybody could have ever brought up. Oh, orcs are black people. Yeah. Well, I think all the orcs are gender fluid, and I think that the orcs might be non-binary. All of this so that the window will continue to shift to every aspect of the hobby. It must carry a political connotation to appeal to the modern audiences. You've always heard that before, back during Gamergate. Come on, guys, you want to appeal to the modern audiences? And the modern audiences are basically dipshit boomers with money who will take their kid to see any Disney Pixar movie, any, like Toy Story 3. It never needed to be made. I would debate that Toy Story 2 never needed to be made. They could have just ended it with Toy Story 1, And that's the dipshit modern audience. It's basically white. How do you appeal best to white Karen and her kids? Because that is where the shit is sold, and that is where all the money is made. Is what is boomer grandfather going to spend on his grandchildren, and what is white Karen going to buy for her kids tomorrow? So I think orcs should be non-binary. So the window has to continuously shift. The goalpost has to continuously shift to basically cater to 1% of people out there that might have bought a model or thought of buying a model, and they're never going to stop. That goalpost is always going to change. Orcs should be non-binary because they don't really have a gender, because they're a specific kind of plant life. But they have a masculine expression. All right. Orcs are all transgendered, masculine-presenting female lesbians. There you go. They have to keep creating language to shift the goalpost over there, because we need to appeal to modern audiences. So everything must have and carry a political connotation with that. Even the orcs, And this goalpost, it will always move. All right. People are slowly being brainwashed to the point where, big is beautiful. The sun really does shine out of the crack of an ugly black woman's ass. And all artistic expression and individual thought has to be sacrificed on the altar of identity politics. So a while back, I talked about Henry Cavill and his 40K TV show project. That was one of my shows earlier this year. Amazon executives want to see female space marines. Games Workshop told them we can't. There's a reason for that, but it's not good enough. So it's like, okay, we'll make some of the Custodes females, because nobody will notice if we do that. And apparently people have noticed, And so, all I can say to this topic is, fuck Amazon, fuck big business, fuck BlackRock. I think I look at some of the stocks that I own. BlackRock owns like 4% of Philip Morris. What the fuck are they doing in cigarettes? Now, I can understand if they're packaging up an ETF to sell to you and it's wrapped up in some of that because, you know, when I was looking at my 401k, you know, the reason why I opted out of my 401k despite the generous 6% match is because all of the stocks were BlackRock and you don't know what's inside each individual ticker. And so, wait a minute, I have to basically put money in my 401k so BlackRock can borrow against that money and maybe build a pipeline in Africa that the Africans won't blow up because they think it's a conduit for the ghosts this time, you guys. They're not going to blow it up because we killed that witch doctor. Oh, wait, they got another witch doctor and he told them it was haunted and they blew it up anyway? Kind of like projects, you know. So as for where we are now, I'm kind of indifferent. I will continue to flush out my Warhammer 30K and Old World Army projects with models and everything. But, you know, a lot of the stuff that I buy is bought secondhand anyway. You know, and if you're not buying secondhand, I mean, there's something wrong with you to a certain extent. You know, if you're buying new models every single release and then it's just growing in a pile of shame, you know, you're what I call the 40K consumer. I'm a collector. You know, I'm sitting there looking at a big old army of Black Orcs right now on my table, and I'm like, yeah, I did some good work in the last couple of days. And then when I was going through the army again, I found this motherfucker, and I was like, oh, I didn't finish him. He's only been tabletop readied. But he snuck by my eye there, you know. So I missed one. So if you ask me, you know, if a boycott comes to GW, you know, you should do your part. You know, I think that GW fans are a little bit too dumb to enact a boycott. You know, the only successful boycott that I've seen in the last decade is the boycotting of Bud Light by white trash like myself. I still don't buy Bud Light products at all or Anheuser-Busch products. As a matter of fact, when this happened, I went and bought a bunch of TAP. This is not investment advice. TAP is the ticker name. I actually made out like a bandit. I bought 20 shares of TAP, and when they went up to $65 I sold, and now the stock's sitting somewhere close to 70. I guess I should have hung on to it, but you know, I made my 15%. And or close to it, and I sold. You know, that's what you do. And I'm never looking back. I would never buy Bud Light stock, you know. They betrayed our trust. You know, but, you know, I kind of consider the Warhammer fan base to be as dumb as the people who bought Malibu Stacy at the end of that Simpsons episode. But she has a new hat.
Don't be fooled. She's just a regular Malibu Stacy with a stupid, cheap hat. She still embodies all the awful stereotypes she did before.
But she's got a new hat.
And then they all rush in to buy it. That's the best way to sum up the normie conformie tabletop consumer. They just don't know any better, you know. And so, you know, what I propose to you is that if you want to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to play 40K, go back to 9th edition and play 9th edition 40K. All right? And just refuse to buy a new release. It's not that hard. And I'm doing my part. The Orcs just came out for Warhammer 10th edition. I'm not buying the Codex. I'm not buying any new models since the release. And I'm not even going to watch any battle reports involving Orcs on 10th edition. All right? I'm done. I'm sitting this edition out. It didn't even twitch my eyebrow. I watched an Auspex Tactics video and that was it. Oh wow, I can have Meganobs back, but they still only have armor piercing 2 power claws. They didn't make us hit harder in close combat like I wanted. So you know, after that video, I was like, I don't need this codex. I don't need this game, and you shouldn't need the game either. So, you know, in the spirit of this. I say we go over to a showcase. I'll show you my Black Orc army that I flushed out because it's finally done. And I guess we'll come up for a summation. So we got nothing spectacular, but according to my phone, this is a perfect 2,000 points on the button army here. So you got a unit of 10 Orc skirmishers here. We got the Bell's Palsy Orc right there, as I pointed out in the Instagram video. And these guys are just arrow boys as skirmishers. Nothing special. They got a musician, And then you got an orc chariot. You got 2 mangler squigs. You come over here to where the wizard is. This is a what do you call it? A unit of black orcs with great weapons and command. They do not have a champion. And the wizard. And then you got over here, you got the war boss's unit. 20 black orcs with full command. And not to mention they've got the this unit doesn't have, they've got the war boss right there on the right, sorry. This is the unit with the special banner. They got the big red raggedy flag, 24 black orcs with the battle standard bearer. Then you got a giant in back there. And then over here, you got 10 more archers, you know, and I gotta get these movement trays painted. I think this is supposed to be a 21 unit, and this guy over here is actually supposed to be in that unit, but that's okay. You know, you got 19. There is supposed to be 20. I'm a black orc short. Let me double check the phone. Double check the phone. Oh, and it was already on, of course. Let's see. What did the phone say? Oh, it was 19 and a mob of 10. It's supposed to be switched around, but yep, it is a 2,000 point army, and as you can see, I'm using a druid. And I threw the mangler squigs in there because I thought that having 2 giants would be just a little redundant, and I wanted an additional drop because I think a good fantasy army, in my opinion, 4 plus 3, 4 plus 4, 9 drops in 2,000 points. That's not bad. Yeah, let's see here. 4 plus 4. Yep, 8, 9 drops. Hell yeah. So let's see here. We got 1 character. The war boss. I should use the Grimgor model, but I don't want to dishonor him because you're not allowed to have Grimgor, you know. And he wouldn't take a loss like I'm about to get dealt. But, you know, this is the army. I painted up some extra black orcs so that I'd have more. The brighter color ones are the more recent ones. The duller color ones are the older ones. I used Iron Warrior's metal. And some of these guys got just a little too much highlight, but... these are some of the old Citadel Arrow Boy models. This is a really badass kit. These guys are, I really like these models. I think there's 3 variants. And then of course, I've already seen these guys getting a re-release. I am gonna buy some of those because I think I want a big unit of 40 Arrow Boys, but I don't know how that's gonna work out. But they sure are easy to paint, they sure are easy to build, and I've actually got a way of sticking these guys on the base to make them rank up now. So, nothing special. Let's go up for a summation. So that's about as far as it goes with me. You know, I thought I'd throw in the showcase at the end there just to, you know, show people who might be new to the channel that yes, I am a gamer. Yes, I do habitually paint miniatures and add to my collections, and that, you know, I am a boomer gamer to a certain extent. I am by the very definition a collector of Warhammer products, you know, and I think for them to kind of go through and retcon for the sake of some ESG money, you know, I think that really does kind of scare me to a certain extent, because, you know, I mean, now nothing is sacred. Now everything has to have a political connotation to it, you know. I mean, you can't have a couple of guys game in the basement, you know, and I think that's, again, I think that you people who are watching this, you're actually the smarter ones. You need to bring the games back into the basement. You need to vet club members. You know, you need to have a private club for members where you play your games, you know, and then you have to, and anybody pledging to that club has to pay, I don't know, $50 a month, or they're not getting in as a pledge or something. It's got to be something egregious, because you notice the more crazy a person is, the more left-wing they are, the less money they seem to have, unless they, you know, they have they're rich trust fund babies or something, but they all live up in Oregon anyway, so, you know, I mean, anyway, that's it for me. As you know, YouTube and Rumble have many features you can use to interact with me. I do check my Rumble comments. You can check out my normal, regularly scheduled live stream on Rumble at noon Standard Mountain Time. That is usually where I'm at, barring if I put out a battle report on Rumble. Rumble is the home of all of my battle reports. As a matter of fact, I keep saying this, I'm going to put up another battle report very soon on Rumble for 30K, so look for it there. And if it gets released on a Saturday, I usually, when I release on Rumble, I tell people on YouTube that there's a release on Rumble that you're not seeing. So don't forget to follow me over there. We are 10 subs away from hitting 100 followers on Rumble. So it's actually really exciting. I did cross that threshold recently, but for whatever reason, Rumble is a little bit glitchy, and it says I have 2 channels, one under Soy Free Warhammer and one under Angry Tabletop Nerd. So subscribe to both, and hopefully I can keep growing over there and gaining in the algorithm, because every time I go over to Rumble, it usually allows me to have 1 sub a week, which is more than I get on YouTube. So if you want to talk to me directly, the link to my Instagram is below Angry Tabletop Nerd. You can DM me with any of your topics, questions, concerns, and complaints. I am usually pretty punctual at getting back to you. If I don't get back to you immediately, it's probably because I'm at work, but I usually get back to people who DM me on Instagram and they just want to shoot the shit. I'm pretty accessible. Don't forget to leave any comments in the comment section on YouTube. I will answer you all. The last time I got over 100 comments, I did answer each individual one, and then we went up to 150. I think that video got close to 170, maybe 200 comments, and I did answer each individual person. So, in case I don't see you, keep painting, keep playing, stay metal, my friends, and together, we can put Wargaming and Dungeons and Dragons and the stuff that we like back into the basement, and we can just talk amongst ourselves and pay Amazon and Netflix the indifference they totally, wholeheartedly deserve. And we'll see you in the next one.